Obviously what I have to say today is fairly serious, and I want to make sure that I say it correctly. And so actually, for maybe the first time in my life, I actually wrote down what I'm going to say. Politicians failed to act on property tax problems until I wielded a bullhorn on the governor's mansion lawn on July 4, 2007. We have an even more serious problem that needs the governor's immediate attention, and I'm hoping that today's conference will be effective, as was that bullhorn. We have evidence of a long and continuing pattern and practice of fraud, corruption, and extreme abuse of power in state and local government involving the Indiana Department of Child Services. We believe that people still in power and possessing superior knowledge of the facts are guilty of at least perjury, obstruction of justice, bank and mail fraud, interstate transportation and aid of racketeering, receipt and transportation of stolen money, criminal confinement, and forgery. There is also evidence of crimes that cannot be discussed today but will be available very soon. As the usual means of legal remedy have been denied, we are giving this evidence to both the media and to the governor, who I trust will help bring these crimes to an end and bring the criminals to justice. That's basically what I wanted to say. I wanted to show you what we've got by way of evidence. This is what we're going to be dropping at the governor's office. We have discs for those who want to see this and corroborate the evidence on your own. This is discs for all of the media here today. I think we have plenty. One for Mitch, yes. But we are, in fact, hoping that this will be addressed as soon as possible, because there are some serious problems going on and we need to get them addressed. Any questions?
That's a huge chart. You say, give a little specifics here and there?
Well, that's what this is all about, but we can, sure. Well, actually, do you want to lay out sort of the basic case, or the, most of this is related to one particular case. It shows a pattern of abuse, but the evidence that we have on the disc and on this is largely related to one certain case. Yeah. So, I don't know how much detail you would like, or what you want in terms of the way this all started, but in trying to find out what happened with one individual person's child. He was paying child support for many years to a woman who did not even have custody of the child, and as it turned out, that money wasn't even going to the woman, and as it turns out, there is lots of irregularities in terms of what was happening with both the money and legally with how it was being collected, and no notices. It's all in here, but we have letters. We've got. Well, we could lose them.
Would you folks please tell us your names and comment on what you're here?
Sure. Let me step this up.
My name is Dawn Robertson. I'm the spokeswoman for HonkforKids.
Spell your name, please.
DAWNROBERTSON.
I'm Doug McIntosh, MCINTOSH, and I'm the Chief Technical Officer for HonkforKids.
Who is the plaintiff or victim here who's caught up in this scenario where they were forced to pay support for someone in custody?
Well, the name of the person that was paying the support and which there was actually obstruction of justice and stuff against, his name is James Payne. And the child who suffered in all this too, his name is Anthony Shreve. There are other children that are not named in this document that don't have anything to do with this, because the mother had several other children, but they were not part of any of this, and so therefore in these documents their names have been redacted.
You mentioned that you've tried to remedy this before, you've gotten nowhere. What steps have you taken? What steps are you going to be taking?
Well, there's two places that you're supposed to take these types of things. One is to Governor Daniels' newly created office of the Inspector General, Indiana Inspector General, and the Inspector General is Dave Thomas. The other thing is when you have allegations of criminal wrongdoing, as we have in here, your remedy is to take it to your county prosecutor in the county where this happens. Now, unfortunately, most of this stuff happened in Marion County, and so we had no choice but to take it to Carl Brizzi's office. Carl Brizzi did nothing. The Inspector General said that he was statutorily prohibited from doing anything. But I think when you examine the evidence, you'll see that that was not the case. He should have been able to investigate this. And we even asked for a special prosecutor because of Brizzi, because this stuff had to do with members known and unknown in his office, as well as these other things.
Members in his office who did what?
Who participated in this pattern of abuse of power and who were controlling the child support end of things. The prosecutor's office is the enforcement arm for the Department of Child Services, earlier the Family and Social Services Administration, or whatever they're calling themselves du jour. And but unfortunately, when you go and you try to get information or try to find out whether there is any passing of information, they act as if they don't know each other.
So what did they gain through all this? Power situation?
Well, some of the things that they gained through this, we're not at liberty to disclose at this moment. But I know that sounds like a cop-out, but trust me, keep tuned, keep in touch. We'll be bringing some stuff out that'll make this even better, or worse, depending on which way you want to look at it. Better for you for a story and worse for Indiana. And we also took this, well, when we first saw that there was something odd going on here, we went to then incoming Attorney General Steve Carter and wrote him a big long letter and included what we could of this. And we referenced the fact that as he was coming into office, he was on TV. Some of you might remember he was on TV a lot saying there was something odd going on with the Welfare Fraud Division and the outgoing Attorney General Karen Freeman Wilson. So since he was on TV about every 2 hours saying this, we decided to send him a letter and say, this might even be connected. But again, no response, not so much as a body relief.
In a nutshell, what do you want to see done? What do you ask for to see?
I think we want to see an investigation into this. The problem is that Mitch Daniels has been making a lot of noise about how he's really improved the Department of Child Services with 800 caseworkers and this, that, and the other program. But the problem is that the judge that was on this case, James Payne, is now the head of the Department of Child Services. That's number one. And number two, as you go through the names in these records, you'll see that a lot of these people are still working, either in their jobs or have been promoted. Some are even in some child advocacy groups, or ostensibly child advocacy groups, pardon me. And so we would like to see those people have to address these issues, and Governor Daniels to bring about some meaningful change. And it wouldn't be so bad if he would get rid of James Payne either.
You folks use the term fraud. On what basis are you alleging fraud? Where did a fraudulent act occur?
This gets into details that will make everyone's eyes close. And it's better for you guys to go and do your own research on this. The story's laid out on the files on this disk, and it references down into documents that are also on the disk. So I think that'll be easier for you guys to pull up at a later date than for me to try and wing it. Because there's several different fraud types, both state and federal, that are addressed in here.
Is there someone in particular that you're focusing on? Anyone in particular? Or is it just
Yes. To answer your question, yes. There are some stars of the show, absolutely. And those people's names have already come out. But it takes a village to obstruct justice, it seems. and it takes a village to pimp a kid out, which is basically what's happened.
Okay, now hold on. What do you mean by that?
Well, what I mean is that, and unfortunately some of this gets into the stuff I can't talk about.
Why can't you talk about it?
Because I can't. Right, because the
federal government is involved? Who in the federal government is involved?
I can't say that.
You can't say, why can't you say that?
Well, because I can't.
Well, we will say...
But this will come out very soon.
Is that confidentiality law?
Well, no, it's not confidentiality in this particular case. It's a different precept.
Just parts of the evidence that you're seeing.
Are any of you attorneys?
No.
Has this been reviewed by attorneys?
Yes, it has been. Compilation has not, because it's a rehash and believe it or not, it's a compression of what we have already delivered 3 years ago to the Inspector General and Carl Brizzi.
Andy, you mentioned there was a judge here. Is the judge available? Not sure. Do you think this sort of October surprise is going to change the fundamental dynamics of the race?
You know, let me just say, what I said at the beginning was that there was nobody who was going to touch the property tax problem until I took a bullhorn onto the governor's mansion lawn. It just wasn't budging. And so sometimes it takes political action of this sort to make something happen. Now, you can say what you want about, electioneering and politics and all of that, and I'll accept whatever sort of judgment you want in that regard. But something has to happen here. And so we're taking this to the governor because I believe he's a man of good intentions and a man who will do something about this. I'm not saying that this is something against Mitch Daniels. I'm not sure that he's ever seen any of this evidence. I wouldn't be surprised if this has been hidden from him. I don't know what he knows and what he doesn't know. I just want to make sure that he does hear this and does see it with his own eyes so that he can make some kind of decision about what to do about it. He's the fellow who created the office of the Inspector General with the purpose of doing this very thing. And since that office has not been of any help in this case, and because what I've been talking about all through the election is the pattern of abuse and the inherent problem of having unconstitutional agencies or anti-constitutional agencies that use powers that are not constitutional to take people's children away, and this ruins lives. This is not something to toy around with. It's very serious. When you're taking people's children away, it doesn't get much more serious than that.
This is Judge Paul Smith, a member of HonkforKids. If you want to ask him questions about how he feels things are going in Indiana in regards to child protection and constitutional rights or the lack of, he's your man. Paul, do you have anything to say about our Constitution? Do we have any rights?
We have constitutional rights.
Are they being violated?
Yeah. Probably.
You want to read it?
Judge, we need you to stand at the microphone, please.
It's okay. It's all right.
Judge, why are you here?
What's your name again?
Judge Paul Smith, he's here because his grandson is one of the victims of this entire situation. At the age of 8, he was taken by the welfare department because of homeschooling. He's now almost 28 years old, and he's still caught in the system. There's no reason for it. He's been put in mental institutions and drugged without cause. This is a young man with a genius IQ. He had a bright future, and it's been snuffed out by a system who is making money off of the warehousing and slave laboring people. And the public doesn't seem to know about this, but it's taxpayer money that is funding this.
Now, are you talking specifically about the same person that...
Yes.
She's not talking about this case.
This is a different
case. But this is why they're here, because this is another family and one more example of abuse of power in Indiana.
Okay, is the situation you're describing, is it listed in these documents that those are listed?
Well, one of the things I want to make clear is we were able to get a lot of evidence on a single case. You can't often do that. You know, when you luck into something like that, that's wonderful. But this certainly isn't the only case like it. There are lots of cases, and we can probably put like almost a parade of people in front of the cameras if you wanted it. We've actually tried to have press conferences before where we did have more people. Nobody showed up for those, probably. But the fact is, we can bring in a lot of people with stories that are equivalent to this. Horrible stories, terrible things that happen to people that are completely unconstitutional, ripping families apart and causing generations of problems. In fact, I know of one case where there are 4 generations involved in essentially, not DCS because they've changed their name several times, but where the family has been pulled apart, and that causes generational problems.
Andy, remind us, because I think it's maybe it's a little hard to follow, what your position is with what should happen to the DCS and what role the caseworker should play absent this.
I have proposed that we eliminate DCS as a bureaucracy. And that we have full constitutional restraint put on any such actions done through any court, where we already have police, we already have the active members who can look and see a situation needs intervention. They can pull a family apart in an emergent situation, and then what has to happen is what I'm really worried about. What happens right now is they enter into a bureaucratic scheme that has its own legislative, executive, and judicial powers. It's completely unconstitutional. And what happens next is that people lose their children without anything like a criminal charge. I don't think anybody should lose a child without a criminal charge being. We should have a standard of evidence equivalent to any criminal charge. We should have, habeas corpus, all of the typical protections that are due any citizen of the United States should apply in this case with absolute rigor, because what we're talking about is tearing apart families, and we should take this as an extremely serious issue. One where instead of throwing aside the Constitution, this is one where we have to make sure that we cross every T and dot every I.
But Andy, we already have courts.
Well, not so much as you're getting more and more tracks each with their own powers, and as you'll see come July 1st, where there's all kinds of fiduciary reasons for a judge to agree with the conclusions of DCS, or they have to come up with their own money for something. We're getting more systematic problems built into the bureaucratic system, as opposed to just simply using the Constitution and the courts as in legal system as they apply to any other case. In fact, let me back up. I think it's the case that whenever you create a response to a specific problem, as opposed to using the same courts and same people, same procedures you do for murder, burglary, whatever the case is, you start developing special rules that start to tend away from the Constitution. And this has been happening for a very long time, such that, it's kind of ironic that Mitch Daniels, for instance, wants to have immunity for teachers who can actually bruise the rear end of a kid against the wishes of a parent. And yet, if you do that as a parent, you can lose your child through DCS. So there's a double standard that's being developed there. That's not just unjust, but completely unconstitutional. And what I want to see happen is some simplicity and order put to this system, where the laws are obeyed, not just the new ones we come up with every day, but the constitutional laws that are supposed to apply to every case all the time.
So, Andy, if you're elected governor, what specifically do you do with the DCS? Do you just eliminate it by stroke of the pen? What would be your approach?
Well, constitutionally, it never should have been created. There is no authority in the Constitution to create the DCS. And if you read Article 1, Section 25 of the Indiana Constitution, where it's very specific that laws do not create authority, only the Constitution creates authority. And no matter what sort of statute or what sort of laws we create, without amending the Constitution, there's no constitutional authority for DCS. So as governor, I would look at this as an agency that has no authorization to live. And I would say that we have to dismantle it. Now, caseworkers would still have a place, but they would be working through court in a different kind of capacity than through the DCS. We have to have a much higher standard of evidence than just, in fact, we can't just take away kids for a bruised bottom. We have to be much more rigorous about when we actually split up a family and send kids off to foster homes. You too.